meeting to order. And for roll call.
Okay, Mayor Manning.
Here.
Brenneman.
Here.
Keel.
Here.
Monahan.
Here.
Horn.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
And Jones.
Here. And we're gonna, any additions to the agenda? Otherwise we'll look for a motion to approve.
Do we have executive session in there?
I think the mayor wants to go into it for personnel.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting from 10/17/2017.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Alright, next up is approving bills submitted for payment, if there are any. Alright, we're gonna jump down to one thing quick here a minute. We'll jump to the Minnehaha County Sheriff Deputy Report with Chancey, and, so she can get her report and be back out.
Alright, continuing with the speed zones in the school, haven't had any issues there, so. Just some special attention areas, just had some complaints about, which I've dealt with this in the past too, the railroad road. Is, the north side of it during sports events continues to be parked on. Regardless if, there's signs there that say no parking, but it's an issue and it's been passed on to the night deputies, so, that's just one of the issues I came across. And then, of course, the parking went down to 3 days, so I'm continuing to have just the over 3 days parking. Miscellaneous stuff, just some mail thefts, more so up in Wall Lake. They haven't come down into Hartford yet. And then I'm sure all of you have known the liquor violations that we had in Hartford, so, at Charter Party and Sunshine. So that's all that happened this last month.
Parking violations, are they commercial or personal?
Right now, it's mostly trailers.
Trailers?
Yeah, I haven't had many. I think I got one car in front of elementary for a car. Otherwise, I got a boat that's still over on David Rowe. And another trailer on Lunt that have been sitting there that are ticketed and just waiting for the go to give the information for the letter to go out, so. And I ticketed, I'm not sure if we got paid, the trailer over off of Main Street, that's the horse trailer, that two horse trailer.
Just curious.
Yeah, so just right now it's the trailers, not a lot of vehicles. Anything else?
I
Awesome,
don't think so.
alright,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chance.
thanks.
Alright, so on our visitor agenda, we have introduction to new code enforcer Lance. He can't be here tonight, he's out ill this evening, so we'll have to get him on another agenda for a future meeting, so. Next up, we have County Economic Development Association, Natasha.
Mayor, councilors, good evening. Some paper for you tonight. Just want to take some time and talk about 2017 and maybe look ahead a little bit at 2018. But first, let me just start by saying thank you for your partnership with Makita. We're 25 years old this year, so we just celebrated our 25th anniversary of regional economic development work. We work with 9 communities in Minnehaha County, and then in addition to that, with the Lakita group, we work with 5 communities in Lincoln County, so 14 in total. And we really try to give a regional perspective to business development and marketing work, and leverage the things that we have going for us here at the local level to a broader stage. So So what you have in front of you tonight is a partnership summary, just giving you some breakdown of the prospect activity and some of the marketing work that we've done. So we'll just jump into that. Business development. We responded to 33 projects during our fiscal year of 2017, which runs October to the end of September. So 33 of those projects, 5 of those responses included Hartford, and then that resulted in 2 company site visits here to the community. And I think I'm blown away by the ability of this community to pull together the complex information that they did in just a few days' time for one of those postings. The message was well received by not only the company but also the state officials that were also working that project. So I think really put Hartford on the map. So I look for more of that to continue. I think the other thing that I want to point out to you is just when we look at the total prospect activity, a good majority, a good chunk of that activity comes from companies who are already here who are growing. And so just know that that will continue to be a focus for us as we move ahead. Under the marketing, we have a long history of our quarterly publication that we call County Perspectives, reaches about 2,000 people, and then our monthly newspaper column. We really tried this last year to beef up our social media efforts, so hopefully you found us online and you've connected and you liked our page and you like and you share our content. We know that that's not a place where we're probably gonna snag a company, but we feel like that's a really good venue for us to interact with you as a counselor or as a nonprofit or as a development board member or a city staff person to learn about the resources you have available to you and to share that. So more to come on that. One of the newest partnerships that we started this last year was with Sioux Falls Business, and this is Jody Schwan, who was previously the Argus Leader as the editor of the Sioux Falls Business Journal, started her own content and business development website called Sioux Falls Business. So Jody helps us by producing 2 feature stories a month, and that typically takes the shape of a community feature or a business feature, and then we do a Q&A with a regional leader or a company official. So Stomping Grounds is one of the first stories that launched on that site. I know we did a Q&A with Jesse Fonkert, and he did a great job with that. And then I know Blue 42's been on there, and then Naughty Gnome is going to be one of the features in December. I think the neat thing about that is that it's and one of the reasons why we wanted to move in that direction is because sometimes there's a lot that people don't hear about. So if the news outlets are in Sioux Falls, how do we get them to pay attention to the great things that are happening out here? Especially from an economic development perspective, we want to attract that outside dollar into our communities so we can keep growing and have those vibrant and healthy communities. So anyway, we dabbled in that. We dabbled in doing some video stories with her, and so we'll just keep doing those. And I also have to say under marketing that Jesse, I think, has done a really good job of keeping Hartford front and center, especially online. People notice that, and it is making an impact. The future, what that looks like, I think we've really spent the last 12 months taking a deep dive into what the future of Makita look like and how we can be the best possible partner for you in your community. I think what that means is targeting our business attraction and retention efforts. What opportunities make sense for us based on our community assets and our regional assets? So we're exploring that. And then also, I think really paying attention to our existing companies and asking them the right questions to find out what those barriers might be or those roadblocks might be to even more success for them in their companies. Resource portal. What we've found based on the feedback from our community partners is that they look to us for for that source of information and how to, I don't know, be successful in economic development. So what we tried with our annual meeting this last week was a panel discussion, and we focused on the topics of housing, agriculture, and just sort of what the state's strategy around economic development is. And so we're gonna keep doing things like that because we feel like there's some value in giving you tools to use. And then again, marketing, so, which I touched on, so. Again, I just have to say thanks, it's been a great year, and I think more to come in 2018. But with that, I'll take questions.
I will shoot right at you right away, Nick. You know, I was at your annual meeting and I remember Steve from the GEOD talking about the importance of website and online targeting and so on. Since you have held this position, which is about 4 years now? Five, no kidding, 5. How much more or less are you dealing with site selectors? Is it becoming more of a common thing versus 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's becoming more common, because the landscape's changed a lot too, because things have moved online more, it's more competitive. Companies are looking at really specific utility needs and land needs, and so sometimes they find it's easier to work with a consultant that can help source that, so that the company then just has to compare things apples to apples and not try to sort that out themselves. So yeah, we're seeing it more and more and more.
Gotcha. So part 2 of question 2 is how much more is the word shovel ready being utilized now versus 5 years ago? Same status quo, or?
I think it's the same. I think the biggest thing that I would tell you is we have to have an inventory of land or something to offer first and foremost, and then we have to have a plan. So it's important, companies want to know that that risk maybe is mitigated, that those questions are going to be answered up front, so that they're not surprised once they get into the process. So they want to know that you've done your homework and that you know what all the steps are going to be from start to finish. Not that there won't be changes along the way.
Yeah.
But I think it's, yeah, shovel ready is important, but I think just being educated and knowing what you have to offer is just as important.
Thank you.
Guess I've got a question. For our region, is workforce availability a bigger issue for our region than it is for a lot of the other regions, or is that just a Midwest issue in general?
I think it's a nationwide issue. It's things that we see and we talk a lot with our colleagues around the state too, especially. I saw a map the other day. There are only 29 counties in our state that grew in population from 2000 to 2016. So I think the question for us, sometimes it's about the right people in the right positions, but I think we're lucky in that we're growing. And so instead of looking at the unemployment rate as your indicator of success in hiring, we look at that growth rate and how many people are moving to the metro area every year, which is around 2,000 to 3,000 people. So I think that's because we've historically had very low unemployment rate.
Sure. Any questions for Nick? Do we do any, is there any sort of, on that workforce line, any partnering or get any statistics out of the universities, whether it's, USD or SDSU or DSU, or of how many of those graduates are staying or coming to these couple of counties or this region?
I don't know that I've seen that number. It might be out there.
Okay,
So
I was just curious.
look into that.
Okay.
I think what you've noticed is that those universities are coming to our region. It's not just us going to their campuses anymore. And so I think that there's that awareness that we all need each other, I think, to be successful. But, I think the key is that education is really important. I did notice this week that Jesse's worked really hard to get all of the available properties in Hartford up on the Location One system, and that's something that we offer through our website as well. So there's lots of demographic reports that can be printed from that system. I just did this, I had a question today from a real estate broker that needed to know the number of agricultural businesses within this area, and you can nail that down within a 1, 3, 5 mile radius of a lot of the available properties. So use that system. I think it could be a really valuable tool for attracting not only industry but retailers as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out.
Alright, next on the agenda, from the visitor section, we got, Mark. He has some information he wanted to share with council and with anybody present on sports complex, kind of the history of that. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, I'll just read it from here, if that's all right. Bear with me. I wish there was more, people here interested in the veto tonight, but, I'm writing this letter in response to the Swenson letter and would like it included in the minutes and posted in the paper as part of those minutes. First, I will start with the facts. On 5/4/10, May 4th, 2010, Mike Sweer, in his board report, stated that talks with landowners was going well. On August 24th, 2010, the sports complex was created. On 10/5/10, the Swenson land purchase was approved. Then came the banner engineering layout dated January 21st, 2011. Approved by the city council per recommendation of the Hartford Area Sports Complex, and clearly shows industrial land in the north 40 acres of the Swenson land. 3 months after the land purchase agreement was approved, the design included 40 acres of industrial land. All voted yes, no mayoral veto, and the support of the rec committee. On 4/3/2012, I motioned with Bob Dealster seconding to have an agreement drafted between the city and the HADC to transfer 10 acres of land to the HADC. All voted yes with no mayoral veto. On 4/17/2012, I motioned with Lee Johnson seconding to have the 75 acres replatted into 3 lots. All voted yes with no mayoral veto. At the same 4/17/12 meeting, I motioned with Gail Olson Duck seconding to approve the 10-acre land transfer agreement with the HADC. All voted yes, no mayoral veto. We have had the Swenson family send a letter voicing concern about the rezoning of 20 acres 7 years after the land purchase agreement was approved. But not one word from them after the transfer or replat or rezone of 10 acres shortly after the sale of their land. The purchase agreement clearly states a portion of land to be used for sports complex, the agreement that the Swensons signed. Have they not seen Central States before now? They didn't even mention Central States sitting on those 10 acres in their letter. As a council person, as the only council person that is still currently here, that's not in the letter, but as a council person that was involved in the purchase, platting, rezoning, and development of this property, I take offense to this letter from the Swensons, claiming they would not have sold the land if they knew that the entire 75 acres was not going to be used for recreation. The city never tried to hide its intent, starting in January of 2011, with the first banner engineering layout. Then with the 10-acre transfer to the HADC for Central States. We can have the discussion about how big the sports complex should be. I think that's fair. When people start to question the actions of former councils, whether it's the Swensons or former elected officials, or people that are reacting to the Swensons' letter, I feel it's time for myself to set the record straight. Check the city council minutes, check the timeline, check the city council support, and lack of vetoes on council action. Then ask yourself why the Swensons waited 7 years to respond to a 20-acre rezone, yet failed to respond to a 10-acre transfer, replat, rezone, and manufacturing building 5 years ago. Mark mine. And that's how it happened, regardless of who stands at the podium or what people put on social media. And just for the record, I would also like to say, Mr. Lorang, you made a comment about the sports complex committee. Word on the street was that they were defunct or whatever word you used. The fact of the matter is, the vice president of the sports complex committee walked into Teresa Seidel's office and told her as much.
I'd like to actually comment on that. What date was that?
I couldn't.
Was
tell
that the
you.
beginning, that was after the first of the year?
Oh, yeah, it was this year.
Okay, so I don't believe they've had elections this year,
I couldn't comment to
right?
that.
Have you guys had elections this year, Dave?
We decided to keep them the same as last year.
And the minutes of that have not shown up on our desk.
Well, I don't know that we're required to give you the minutes.
I believe we are.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Our auditor has asked
Yes.
that entities who
Any
give money
committees.
provide minutes to us, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so from our
We receive
standpoint,
funding.
we had no idea that there is a sports community complex out there. Let alone, we don't know, when you got up and introduced yourself as the president the other day, that about blew me over backwards.
You've been to our meetings before, you know. our-
I had last year, yes, but this year, there's been no election that we know of.
No, that's right, we did not have elections, we decided.
So you're the former president,
No, I'm still the chairman.
with no election, you're the former president.
We decided as a group, and we went through it. We provide our meeting minutes.
Well, I'd
We do
enjoy
our
that.
annual meeting minutes, and we provide it to the state. They get drawn up by the lawyers, so, I mean, we
But
went through
your
the process.
vice chair walked through the door and had a conversation with Teresa, like you
Exactly.
guys being just about done. So if that's the word on the street, it came from the vice chair. And while we're on the topic, Chamber of Commerce newsletter this month, Central States Manufacturing, they went in 2012. A year and 4 months after the Swensons sold the land to the city, sold the land for $600,000, not donated, sold the land. When Hartford opens its door in 2012, we had 12 million pounds in sales, and as we are nearing the end of 2017, we will be closing in on 32 million pounds of sales. In 2012, we got 17 employee owners, and we currently have 59 employee owners, which include our own trucking fleet. In 2017, we have already made an impact on our community with completing 10 projects, and we have another 5 more projects left for this year, which include granting a Make-A-Wish in November, Samaritan's Shoebox, My Fishing Pond, Never Give Up, Pheasant Hunt in December, and the team's favorite RAOK, Random Act of Kindness, around Christmas time. This in grant total will be around $25,000 given back to our community. So I understand the passion of the sports complex, soccer field supporters, but sitting up here continuously since 2009, involved in the purchase, the development of this land, I get to think about things like this. I get to think about jobs, I get to think about tax base, I get to think about soccer fields, baseball fields, and the whole ball of wax. In my mind, this has never been an all or nothing. It's never been 75 acres, period. Because now we're down to 65. And now, from what I understand, there's quote-unquote discussions to come up with a plan on how we move forward. And in my mind, anybody that stands on the foundation provided by the Swenson letter that it's 65 acres, if you strike a deal with the city council at this point, you're throwing that Swenson letter under the bus, which I think should be thrown under the bus anyway. But if you're standing on the letter at the last meeting and willing to make a deal with the city a month later, in my mind, that's a bad position to have. I'm standing right where I always stood, and I'm still gonna be standing here next month. I'm not moving. So, that's all I got. I want that to paper.
Yep, it will be.
All right, thanks, Mark. So, next on the agenda is, under ordinance resolutions, applications, and hearings, is the information about the veto of ordinance 648. And, for any of you who haven't, and obviously you've seen the minutes, you know, you've probably seen what's going on. I'll give a little background on my reason for vetoing 648, and it wasn't because I didn't believe that a portion of it should be rezoned and have it ready for economic development, because I think it should. I think it sends the right message to all parties involved, so that everybody knows what's available for this and what's available for that. And I feel over the last 7 years that has been a little bit gray. I think some have believed it's for this, and others have believed it's for that, and everybody's been waiting to see which one would happen first. And as we've all seen, rezoning hearings aren't always that much fun. I would rather have them here now in our own business rather than when we have a business on the line. So, I supported the rezoning and defended it many times. The reason I vetoed it was after our meeting on the 17th of October, talked to several citizens, and I felt there was enough citizens' concerns, enough citizen support out there that felt there needed to be a plan in place. And rather than put Hartford through, fingers pointing this way and fingers pointing that way, my feeling was that if we're gonna do this right, and it hasn't been right for the last 7 years, we can take the additional 7 months, or whatever it takes, to get some of this planning done, get some of these things put together, get the right people around the table, start discussing things, and then be able to come back with a plan and have everybody feel a little bit more comfortable with that. So, that was a big part of my reasoning for the veto, was to work on a plan that way, get a group together to start doing that. So, we did actually, I got a call from Stockwell Engineers, this is a couple weeks ago, and Mitch and John said, hey, you know what, we're looking at some things, and we'd be willing to have our place out there as a place to take a look at what options are, what things are, all of that. So I invited, hope I get everybody, catch everybody here, but Matt Evans, Dave Lorang, I asked Arden Jones and Travis Keel to be there. Teresa was there, Mitch was there, Jesse was there, Nick Bournes as a member of the community was there, and we started to work through some ideas and start just looking at some plans. And I can tell you that nothing was decided, nothing was agreed upon, but there was a spirit of cooperation in the room, and I felt that everybody got to say their part, talk about what their concerns are, and I think everybody represented their group pretty well, and that came through in the disagreements that happened, and I think that's important. It may take a little bit of time, but that was the first step in trying to get a plan put together. So, with that, I'll be quiet on this agenda item, unless anybody's got any questions for me.
make a motion to overturn mayor's veto.
I'll second.
Let me help you out a little bit to make sure we have the right motion. 9-1910 says the mayor in a municipality with common council may veto any ordinance or resolution by filing a written objection with the finance officer. That's happened. And then 9-1911 says if the mayor vetoes any ordinance, resolution, or other item pursuant to 9-1910, the finance officer shall present the ordinance, resolution, or other items with the mayor's written objection at the next city council meeting, and it may be reconsidered. Okay, so up to there, if nobody did nothing, the mayor's veto stands. You've made a motion to override the mayor's veto, but the statute says this. If the ordinance is passed by a vote of the alderman, it shall be published and become effective notwithstanding the mayor's disapproval. So I think the correct motion is to say, I move that we pass ordinance 648 if it is your intent to override the mayor's veto.
I'll rescind my motion.
Second.
And I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 648.
Is there any more public comment on this budget?
And I'll second.
Now that we got a motion and a second, we can have discussion. I think first I'll open it up for discussion with council. And then if we want public comment at that point.
I'll start this out as to why I second. Quite honestly, I'm also disappointed that there's nobody here on this matter. I mean, that's truly disappointing, because that means everybody's set in stone on their decision. When we had the first meeting and everybody this place was packed, I was pretty excited, quite honestly, that everybody was here. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, I was ecstatic that everybody was here, because I think I had almost given up on that sports complex up there. There was nobody doing anything, there's literally nothing going on. We had not heard from the committee, from what we had understood. The vice president had come in and told us they were doing nothing. So when I see everybody come in here, I was ecstatic, because now we're gonna get some stuff done. Travis and I, as Dave said, we had been to their meetings last year, we stuck our neck out in front of this council to budget money for this year, for 2017. We can even still appropriate that money towards that fund. We've got less than 60 days to do so. We can still appropriate that money. And we stuck it out there, and it went by the wayside. Nothing happened. This is a $10 million plus. It's gone up now. I guarantee you that. When I was 3 years old, in my hometown, they built a park that was 72 acres. Tennis courts, shelters, baseball fields. There was even a little lodge where you could go in and have a plug-in crock pots, whatever. Population for that town was 30,000. 72 acres. 65, right? 65. And then I see the Save Our Sports Complex Facebook page. I don't ever remember anybody behind this table ever saying we want to get rid of it. And that really disappointed me. Like I said, we budgeted money for it. We stuck our necks out for it. And there was two things that really stuck out about to me about that page. First was all the pictures. Pictures were great. I could see 2, maybe 3 pictures that were taken up at that sports complex on that whole thing. Of the 10 pictures that were on there, there was 2, maybe 3 pictures that were taken up there. That's not even for sure. One of them was a sign. Obviously, that was stuck up. The pictures that were on that Facebook page are what we're trying to make that thing. We're trying to get concessions up there. We're trying to get power, sewer. We're trying to get bathrooms up there. This is exactly what would have done it. We even said last time that we're putting a plan together to move everything and get it situated. The other thing, like I say again, no one's ever mentioned getting rid of the sports complex. So I have no idea. Everything has been so grossly misrepresented, excuse me. And that bugs me. And I think the other part that bugs me most is when it say it's for the kids. Because you look up here at everybody behind this desk, and there's not one of us that doesn't have a kid. Mine's about to turn 4, and the other one just turned 6. My wife just told me tonight she can't even figure out how to sign them up for soccer. Don't have a clue. Every community we have is going to have growing pains. Every community. You don't think Arden Jones down there and everybody on Mickelson is going to have growing pains next year when Mickelson gets finished? It's going to be a pain in the butt. And I hope it happens. It's going to be a pain. And we'll probably get complaints about it. But you know, the slight chance that a child would have to use a soccer field elsewhere for a season, maybe 2, and we're talking slight, 10% chance. And now, because 100 people, let's be blunt, 100 people signed a petition, are gonna sign the petition, the mayor had to veto this. That's the only reason why we're doing this. So, you can tell citizens have really disappointed me in the last few weeks, and not because anything I mentioned previously. I think the biggest thing is because 2 years ago, we went through exactly something very similar to this, where people did not want business in town. And it was a different faction. It was the city council, actually. Now it's a different faction. Now it's the citizens, it's some of the citizens that don't want it. But how much more do we have to endure? How much more do we have to throw out there before Jesse Fonkert back there gets a request for information from the Governor's Office of Economic Development that says, we're looking for 15 acres, and he offers it, or the council offers it, and that business owner, or say that business owner's me, I'm the business owner, and I get that offer, and I say, you know what? Not interested, because Hartford's really not too hip on having new business in town. All because 100 people held this bill hostage, held this ordinance hostage. We've got a dark history here the last 2 years. And I don't know where it stops. I don't think it doesn't stop here. If we pass this, I think we're making it even worse. It's just gonna be brought up on the news again. Everybody's gonna call the news, and we're just gonna be drugging through this, and it's gonna continue. So I don't understand how I seconded it, but I can't vote for it. You guys have held us hostage.
I wanna give my 2 cents. To be quite honest with you, I'm ready for a vote. Cause there's 3 factions in this town, and I've heard from all 3 of them. There's sports complex people, that it's all for the kids, and it's 65 acres. And it's all based on the Swenson letter, which in my opinion is not based in fact. Then you got the economic side of people that think it's just an incredible waste of time, money, and energy to put any kind of activity up there, and it should just all be business. And then you got the faction that thinks the city council and the people are stupid for doing either one of them up there. I have heard from people
I've heard all
that
three.
think business and sports in that location is stupid. Period. So, you know what? I've been sitting here since day one of this conversation. There's nobody in this room who's been sitting here longer than me on this conversation, with the exception of Craig and Teresa. And I'll tell you what, this Swenson letter and the all or nothing, 65 acres is for the kids. All 65 acres. We're gonna go on social media and, the stuff that's on social media. We got former elected officials chiming in, trying to rewrite history. I understand we got a current state senator chiming in, and I've never heard or seen her face have anything to do with this process since 2009 chiming in, from what I understand. But the fact is, I'm ready to have a vote. I don't think anybody has to get all worked up. I just wanna know what the people of this town want. I wanna know if the people in this town are gonna turn out for a 65-acre sports complex, cause the next thing out of my mind, or out of my mouth is gonna be, let's start dumping money in it. Let's just dump money in it. But, on the other hand, if the people show up and want 20 acres light industrial, then I'm gonna say the same thing. Let's start dumping money in it. Because to tell you the truth, I don't know where to put the money. I guess I was naive and thought we could do both. I thought we could have light industrial and have sports complex just like we have right now. 2 baseball fields, 3 soccer fields, Central State's business of the month. But apparently, we can't do that anymore because the Swensons wrote a letter. And all hell's breaking loose. So I say, pass the ordinance, turn in a referendum, let's have a vote, and next year we'll know where to throw the money. That's what I think. Because I'll tell you what, if we don't have this vote, and there's a group of people, city staff, city engineer, couple people on the council, sports complex, Nick Sporns, you get that group together, you work it out for 2 or 3 months, come back with an agreement on light industrial up there, then somebody needs to call the Swensons and tell them that you stood on that letter for it's all for the kids and it's all 65 acres, but then after some negotiation, you threw them under the bus. Because that's what you're gonna do if you negotiate with the state. I say we gotta vote.
Any other discussion of the council? Matt?
I guess where to begin. You had mentioned the dark history, right? I think there's a group of people here that, on both sides, on all sides, that don't want to see this happen. And you might call it, taking it for hostage. And in some cases, I guess you could say that, but it's also then just making sure there is a lot of mistrust in this community. Whether it's, I understand you are new board members, but the history of this city, the recent history, gives people plenty of mistrust, just for the nature of the position and what has happened. But I think...
I gotta interrupt you right there. The last election, you know how many seats went unopposed?
I agree.
Oh,
Every single seat went unopposed.
Nobody ran.
Nobody ran.
right, very few people wanted to be involved after that whole thing. So I understand where you guys, right. So it's not necessarily us against you. But here's, the thing is, there is some natural mistrust based on that, whether it was you before or anything. It's just the way it is, and probably why that's great that you guys stepped up. You know, because there's plenty of people that didn't want to touch these positions with a 10-foot pole because of everything that had happened. So as far as the dark history and wanting to move forward and put a bright light on our community, I think the work that Mayor Manning has done, along with when we've had meetings with Mr. Keel, Mr. Nelson, when he's come out, that type of thing, whether it was out at the sports complex or recently with our meeting last week, that you're also missing a group. You say there's just 3 groups. There's a 4th group that is willing to figure something out and to make things work for the entire community. You know, there might be a couple, I understand your frustration with the Facebook page. I had nothing to do with that. That's, I think, one community member. And if you look at, even at the end of this, the first post or one of the main posts, at the end, and you know, the way people word it, I might have worded it differently had I been, it does talk about a compromise. It doesn't talk about an all or nothing, 65 acres or nothing. In the last part, it does talk about, do we want to compromise? And then as far as, and I don't know where these other social media things, because if you look at their posts, the only other posts, there's like 2 other comments. One is mine, where I discuss all the positive work of people wanting to move forward. And then there was someone who later on posts just asking about signatures being collected. So where all this additional social media is supposedly coming from, I haven't seen it, so I don't know where that's coming from. But if off of just that particular,
there's a wave of folks that wrote that letter.
huh?
That social media was a wave of folks that wrote the sharing of the Swenson letter. So
Beyond that group.
it wasn't this group that you're talking about.
Before this group was even
It was
created.
before this group was created. So it's out there. It's pretty easy to find. And
Something other than the Save Our Sports Complex one?
Correct.
it's for the kids. in that one.
Well, yeah, that's what it says. Save Our Sports Complex is for the kids. So they have one post that is sharing from the Swenson letter.
It was shared by other people is what we're saying,
Okay, yes. So,
beyond that.
but here's the thing. There are plenty of people that are willing to work for a compromise. And yeah, there are a couple people that are holding to that letter and holding to the 65 acres and that are, you know, whatever. You know, my comment on that, yeah, they signed off on it, but if Mr. Swenson's 92 and he signed off, I mean, it's still he was 80 some at that point in time. Was he really thinking about he needed to, letter of the law say that? But yeah, legally you guys are in the clear because it could be a portion. But I think to gain additional trust with the community and, okay, take the higher road, right? Show that you're willing to work. And I think you'll find there are plenty of us there that are willing to, that understand that there's 2 sides to this. And that it's not an all or nothing piece. And as far as you saying that nothing's being done up there, other than Terry, and I think I might have put in more hours out there, or almost as many, and I don't get paid. Walking that, finding where the fields go, going out and marking the fields. He got to it towards the end of the season doing the outside, but last spring,
I'm talking about permanently.
right, so, but, you know, we've had plenty of things. And as far as in the sports committee, we were waiting on a piece from Stockwell that I believe just came in, Teresa, last month. Is that right? You said that was talking about the next step. So as a group, we felt like, okay, as far as the big picture items, we're waiting on that, and then it's up to you guys. Any of the other things, we had decided we'd meet twice a year to come up and, okay, purchase additional, items that they might need out there, where it's additional fencing things or whatever. Because to go anywhere next, I mean, we're at a standstill without, it either stays as is and nothing really improves out there, or there's something that moves forward on a large scale, or a semi-large scale, where, like I said, we were waiting on plans still that just came in last month. So as a group, it was like, we'll keep the people in place where they're at, but why meet once a month when there's nothing to do other than plan for Jamboree days? And yeah, we're gonna get a beer cart out there and occasionally buy some equipment.
When was your last meeting? When did you guys decide to keep the same positions?
I don't know, beginning of the year, March, I wanna say,
And after that meeting,
or is it?
Last Monday.
We met after Jamboree Day.
Okay, yeah, so,
June?
July.
Six
So I think
months,
that's one I missed.
6 months in this 2017, nobody has gotten excited about the fact that the city council has $100,000 sitting there for you. Nobody's gotten excited about the fact that the city council has a $40,000 position for a liaison, because nobody wants to call it a park and rec director, because we haven't gotten enough feedback from the community to justify calling it that. So there's 140 plus the 20,000 in your account, there's $160,000 sitting out there. And we don't hear a bloody word until we talk about rezoning the thing.
Well, as far as I was under the understanding that $100,000 was, and I can't remember who described it this way, that was gonna be start putting aside for a large project. And at that time, you were both at the meeting where we had softball, baseball involved, and the next part was gonna be adding on to those, to creating that quad of softball, baseball fields. And so the way, as far as I understood it, and I believe our committee understood it, is the 100,000, and then we thought the way that it was gonna be continued, 100,000 going in each year to help start paying for moving forward.
I just wanna make sure the community knows that you guys weren't on the radar. You weren't on our radar, other than the fact that we attempted to get your wheels going again,
Right.
and
Well,
then it just stayed. I mean,
so whether it's, I guess
from
as
you.
far as whose responsibility to push Stockwell to get that, I don't know where we fall in as a committee that doesn't really have any power to tell,
Call a city council
so,
member, talk to your city council. Never fielded a phone call.
Let me tell you a story about what the sports complex did at one point in time, probably, 5 years ago or so? When they originally got the plan from,
Oh, 2012.
was it Stockwell roughly?
Yeah,
Yes.
Stockwell's came in 2012.
There wasn't a policy, now there's a policy in place that no one can call Stockwell engineers except for Teresa and the mayor. At that point in time, there was no policy like that. The sports complex, this is, I believe, is before everybody's time. At that point in time, once Stockwell came back on, we had a break there with Stockwell, it was actually Banner. Stockwell came back on. The sports complex committee went to Stockwell and said, can you provide us a new plan? They provided the master plan that we have now, right? That plan was never approved by a city council. It has since been sitting in front of us. The only approval that a city council, excuse me, not we, because it's been before my time, the only approved that they've made was grading the thing back when it first started. So this city council has not approved a $10 million expenditure for that park. It's solely been on the sports complex. A $10 million project would be the largest project this city has ever seen, by $4 million. And we haven't even started the Mickelson project, which is $6 million. That would be the largest.
And I don't think anybody's asked for 10 million, I mean, that's an old thing, and just like you're in a new position there as the newest member of the, sports committee, a lot of that was also before my time, so we're both in the same, we're both in the same boat, and I think one of the things that Mayor Menning had talked about in the way to move forward with that is to improve the communication between the two groups, and because I think there's a lot that's out there that, well, we think they're taking care of it, and so maybe there wasn't follow through when it was, so, we're kind of both, but I think the main thing is.
I still, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right.
I still come back to Mark's statement. I mean, we've got 50 different people yelling at us to do 50 different things. How do we know what's right? Easiest thing to do is bring it to vote.
I have a question too, because apparently somebody has done the paperwork, got signatures for a referendum.
I think they got the paperwork, and I don't know how many signatures and I think part of what they were waiting on, was to see how tonight's goes.
So, you said there's another faction that's willing to negotiate, cooperate. So
Come to
how do
a-
I know who's been doing legwork on the referendum is part of that group? Because everybody that's approached me has been from the all or nothing crowd. So what's to say we sit down for 2 months and negotiate a deal, and then somebody from the 65 or nothing group pulls another referendum? And then it was all for nothing. So I say we pass it, we see if it gets referred. If it gets referred, we put it to a vote of the people, see what the people wanna do. Because at this point, I have no idea. I thought I had a handle on it, but obviously I don't.
And I'm interject here too, and good points, Mark and Brian and everybody, I appreciate that very much, and I think, if nothing else, this is creating a call to action, okay? We're not sure what that call to action really might be, but what it seems evident to me is that we have, as you put it, the all or nothing crowd, we have the industrial crowd, we have the council who has access to a lot of information that you guys don't. That's just the way it is. So I'm leaning towards what you're saying with the referendum, if it does actually happen, because the last meeting, I've told Mitch this, I had a motion written out to spend $300,000 to flatten the land so we can get this monkey off our back, okay? And just get it done so that we can keep you guys happy and we can move on with an RFI. And it seemed like it made a lot of sense to me. But you're right, no matter what we do, it seems like it's a catch-22. Unfortunately, since that time, we've had, that number's increased. We're dealing with a $6 million project here, a wastewater project that's down the pipe that's gonna cost, what's the number, 14, 10? I can't even remember anymore. A lot. And I'm willing to bust the bank. Okay, I'm willing to bust the bank for you citizens. I'm ready to make the motion. I probably would get turned down to go above and beyond post-budget meeting so we can keep this moving forward, be it industrial or sports complex. And that seems to make, sense to me. Now, like I say, will it carry its weight in water? I don't know. But I had my mindset going into this meeting, and after hearing the discussion, I'm curious. I want to know how many people are going to show up at that poll if it does actually happen, and if it doesn't happen, that's enough for me to say, okay, I understand where this is gonna sit, or where we're at, because we didn't get 100 signatures. Or, we came to an agreement with this group in a short amount of time, which has gotta happen, okay, it has to happen. I mean, 2 months max, because come spring and breaking ground time, you know, we can do some reallocation and make that happen. So, you know, I've covered about a lot of different little things there, but I wanna make sure that everyone in this room knows that it is my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion that I've spoke with, that let's stop messing around with alfalfa and you know, where the borderline is for the 20 acres. Let's get that thing in the book so Jesse can go to work and we can flatten it up and figure out what else can be done with, boy, I wish we had that whiteboard next year, with all of this land sitting right there, okay? It's all sitting right there and doing nothing. And the end of the term on the contract of the alfalfa ends now, this year. So now's the time to do it, and I've had my time. Thank you for listening.
And I think you bring up a good point. I think most of the people that are in the room, most of the people that did show up tonight, are the people who are willing to cooperate on it. I really do. And I believe one of them that we had at our meeting, last week, last week Wednesday, is from a party that is willing to compromise, but wants to see that there's a plan in place, and can influence the folks that may be interested in passing the petition around. So I don't think it's as much as everybody's talking back and forth, I don't think there's as much us versus them in this room as all the bystanders might think. Most of the people that are in the room are the people who want to cooperate and want to work on things together.
Cool.
I'm not I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I'm not looking at it as us versus them. I mean, that's not the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it as Mark's saying. I mean, it's, you know, what is the best way to go about this? Because down the line, if we make, I mean, this doesn't pass and we get a RFI tomorrow, we can offer that land up tomorrow. And we can offer it to a business and make a motion to offer that business 20 acres, say. And then you guys have 20 days to petition that motion. That's the same thing we're doing right now, basically. I mean, we're rezoning it, we're not offering it. Would you petition that? I don't know. Why shouldn't we let the community decide what they want to do with their land? I don't know.
I think we're not gonna go too much longer. We've got plenty of meetings, but if you got something, Mark?
I would, mostly because I wasn't at the last meeting when this came up, so I'm a little late to the party, and I say. But the question I got to the sports complex is 40 acres not enough?
I don't think anybody's saying, and I think even as the sports complex, you know, Dave and I were both, and sorry, I don't wanna speak for you, Dave, but I think we were both, you know, talking about the willing to work and understand that, you know, if that portion does get rezoned, but I think the main thing is that people wanna see that something is happening with that land, that we are gonna move forward with something. If that is gonna be rezoned, that we're ready to go and we start working on redoing things and that we're moving forward.
So a follow-up with that then is, have you seen any action from this council suggesting that we are trying to eliminate a sports complex?
No, and I am not one of those people that put on there that it's anything, and I don't think.
I'm just trying to clarify where we stand here, because, you know, for me, when I ran for this position, I ran for economic development, okay? And that's what people wanted me to run for. That's what people encouraged me to do. And so it's tough for me to go back on that, because I see this as an economic development issue of having land available. If somebody could wave a magic wand and get somebody around us to sell land for commercial development, this would be a whole lot easier, but we're landlocked. That's a fact that we're faced with, unfortunately. And so, for me, just rezoning this is not saying we're eliminating a sports complex. We're shrinking it to a legitimate size of 40 acres, which to me is more than enough. And then as I sit here on the council and I think, when the sports complex comes up and says, we need water and sewer, Mitch, what's that gonna cost? Rough estimate.
700,000.
700,000. I'm gonna have to scratch my head and say, how can I spend $750,000 to run water and sewer up to there when we don't have a building? We have a $6 million road project going on, we've got other roads that need work, we have a $12 million station that needs to be built, you know. But if we're gonna put another Central States type company up there, I'll run that water up there in a heartbeat. Just like we're spending $6 million to get the Anson land developed. That's the, you know, that's the stuff we have to weigh up here.
Right, and I think there's a large group that sees that there can be a win-win situation there based on that.
And so if we're already negotiating or talking about how we can work together on this, then why can't we pass the rezone? Is the question I have to the council. If we're already talking about how we can make things better, why would we not pass this? Let the land sit as its intended use, or as it's being used right now as soccer fields. Been used as soccer fields for how long? And if somebody comes up and wants to put a building and bring 100 people in as an example of employees, how do I not vote for that? Because that money alone will run water up through there. We'll have more money to build other things in the community. We're gonna have more housing. I mean, the impact of that would be phenomenal. So,
It's a lot bigger ripple than doing anything with the sports complex on that, so.
yeah, we could spend $10 million on a sports complex and it's not gonna make Hartford
But they talk about,
any better
you
than
hear it all the time,
financially.
it's about quality of life.
Well, my
It sounds to me like the business we put up there, it does a lot to support the quality of life for
Business
its
of love.
employees and this community.
So I guess I wanna be clear is that I'm in favor of the rezone, but I'm also in favor of making sure that the sports complex or ability to have a facility for sports in this community is also addressed. I'm not kicking the complex to the curb, I'm simply rezoning so we can have an option down the road. And building, if we get a big building like that, again, brings in money to help pay for quality of life stuff like this that we don't have to have as a community. It's a luxury, but to have that luxury, we have to have income.
I spoke for everybody earlier, but just a quick question, is anybody for getting rid of the sports complex behind the stadium?
No,
That's what I said.
Okay, nobody is, I just wanted to clarify.
Alderman Jones, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was at the meeting that's been mentioned a time or two. I would say we had a pretty good conversation. I guess my question now to you guys is, I think we can pass this, continue our conversation, and get both people happy. I'm a little concerned when I hear you stand up here and say that there's a mistrust, because I'm one of the guys that ran into the fire when this thing was going downhill. I don't like that people say, we don't trust you guys, because that bugs me, because I ran into the fire. So, that's all I'm gonna say, that bothers me.
And I guess the reason I said that people that don't understand what, yes, many of you that stepped up to be involved with something that people, like I said, didn't wanna touch, you know? And unfortunately, some of those people that, they chirp and they chirp when they only are on their peripheral, you know?
Yep.
And that type of thing, you know? And sometimes, unfortunately, it's people like that that eventually start chirping in without being involved, being to these meetings, being to that thing. So, you know, and that's where, I'm not saying I have that mistrust, you know, it's a lot of those chirpers.
Yep.
You know, and,
But they're allowed, and Ryan or Travis, one of them said, we got 100 people holding us hostage. And I don't know that that's necessarily the right number, but we have to, I told you at the meeting, same thing Mark just said. You know what we're on here for? Economic development of keeping the city and increasing our tax base. I would say that's number one. Our number two, yeah, we want to have a good quality of life. I agree with Travis. I mean, that's part of the deal. But first and foremost, if we don't have the tax dollars to run this deal, we're in trouble. We're all in trouble. So we have to be able, I think we can do this. I think we can pass this resolution and still go forward with our,
I agree.
with the plans.
I agree.
I'm gonna add one more note, and when Matt, and then once again, I'm not trying, because I know that it's a tendency of an average person to think negative, or talk negative. If I'm gonna tell you, it's common knowledge, when you said the word mistrust, I understand what you're coming from, I was here. I sat through the middle of the whole thing, Mark and I, the only two surviving members of that, okay? But I can tell you and everyone in this room, and everyone that can possibly hear on that camera, that this council that sits back here now is hell and gone different than it was 2-3 years ago. And I respect every one of these gentlemen because they speak their mind, they're honest, they listen to every single person that calls them. I'm not calling anyone else dishonest before, but I can say to tell you right now that this council is completely open to what everyone has to say when it comes to not only quality of life, economic development, but Hartford as a whole.
Alright,
One more?
I think we're gonna call the vote.
One more?
Terry, I'm gonna call the vote.
Fair call.
Yep, call the vote.
Let's read it back.
Monahan moves to approve ordinance 648, Horn seconds.
Okay. Councilman Nelson,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
and Monahan.
Yep.
Alright,
Take a history, really.
right, we've been every which way we can be on this thing, so.
Now, how can we make sure that we move forward on working with the sports team like we already have? Do we need a motion to continue?
Well, what we don't have anything on the agenda that we can take action on as far as that goes. What I would encourage everybody to do is, we've encouraged the community to be in touch with the council people. Council people, I'd encourage you to be in touch with the community, because if you believe what you say tonight, where you think we can move forward
Absolutely.
with rezoning and getting a plan in place, then you might need to tell people that. And I think that there's sometimes this feeling like the council doesn't have to reach out, they'll call me if they got a problem. Well, the way they'll probably call you to tell you have a problem is in the form of petitions or social media. So I would encourage you to get in touch with people that,
Just to be in good faith, I will ask Teresa to put it on the next agenda, that we just talk about the sports complex committee or what have you. And if it needs to be rerouted from there,
You guys already had a meeting on three, so why wouldn't you just continue meeting like that?
We would. That doesn't include everybody in the community. So what I'm saying is just like Mr. Monahan pointed out, that doesn't guarantee that everybody is going to feel hunky-dory about everything. You know, or you too.
If a referendum's turned in, Teresa, when's it gotta turn in by?
Okay, so now that we passed it again, we've got to publish it. It'll be published next Thursday. They got 20 days from next Thursday, that published date, to get it in. And they've got to start,
They have
their
to start-
signatures over again. That's the date they can start the referendum, is the published date, so.
Based on the action.
Yeah,
Based
so they've
on
got
action.
20 days.
Yep.
Because basically your veto stopped all the prior stuff, and now we're moving ahead with passing it again. We gotta republish it. They've got 20 days from the publication to turn in a referendum.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to move on? Alright, thank you, everybody. Be in touch. We'll plan on continuing that meeting. We still have a meeting planned for the 29th. Dave, Matt. Jones, Deal,
You'll probably have to formally appoint us at some point.
Jesse. May have to do that at the next meeting too. And we had a JDC member there as well, so. Okay.
The reality of that meeting is, it's the 29th, I think.
Yes.
It's 22 days from now.
Yeah.
It'll be a whole different meeting.
Well, and it'll be
They don't
20
start
days
till
from-
Thursday.
But
when
that
it's
doesn't
published.
start till a week from
A
Thursday.
week from Thursday.
A week from Thursday, so it'll be the
Comes out in the
16th of
paper.
November.
Yep.
Yep.
Sorry, go back to those days.
So we will publish the ordinance in the paper. We'll send it there this week. So next Thursday it'll get published.
Right.
So from that date, there's 20 days in which somebody
December
can turn
5th.
in a petition.
So it actually ties in on the same day that would be the next, is it December 5th?
Council meeting,
That
yeah.
other council meeting, so it'd be kind of the same.
That is correct.
And that's all.
December
Yep.
5th,
Yep.
yep.
Yep, you have the 5 o'clock on December 5th, the referendum would.
Alright, next item on the agenda is a special event application for hometown Christmas event on December 3rd, 2017. Lisa?
Everything's pretty much the same as previous years. We are asking for some street closures on that day, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're asking for Main Avenue from Mint Street to Second Street, and then Second Street can stay open until parade time. And then from 5 to 7, the closure of Main Avenue just south of Highway 38 to South Street for the parade, and the closure of South Street from Main to Oaks Avenue. The parade will run the same route as it has in the past. And before we've had the private sheriff's office and the fire department that kind of help with traffic up there. We're also asking for the use of city equipment and people. Same as before, the barricades, and we prefer to have city workers take care of the city equipment, so we don't have volunteers responsible for doing things maybe not the appropriate way. So,
That's nothing.
we have great volunteers, but no, it's nothing new.
Okay.
So really, we're asking for nothing. The only thing new this year to the event is they added a 5K and a family fun walk. And that's gonna be before the parade starts. It's gonna start and end down here on Second Street where the parade will begin. So that's the only thing that was added differently from years past. So everything else, the fireworks, the location of the fireworks, nothing has changed as far as those go.
Make a motion to approve special events permit for Hartford Hometown Christmas on December 3rd, 2017.
Second.
I think before we call the vote, do you wanna add something or rescind that motion?
Oh,
Change
yes,
it
I
as-
would also like to, can I rescind that motion?
Sure.
I will, would like to make a motion to approve the special events permit for the Hartford Hometown Christmas on December 3rd, 2017, and waive the fee. With all my apologies.
I was supposed to ask for that.
I was actually gonna do it too.
Thank you very much.
You still got, did you second that, Scott?
I did.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Okay. Alright. Monahan?
Yeah.
Jones?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yep.
Keel?
Yes.
Warren?
Yeah.
And Nelson?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to have city help or city staff run the equipment.
I would say that's good. Our insurance won't let anybody else run it anyway.
Second,
Yeah.
and if needed.
Is that a motion then that you're making?
Well, it was, but Teresa doesn't seem to think we need one.
I don't think we can allow them to run the equipment, so
No,
I
I
don't
was
know if we
gonna
need a
do it
motion
anyway.
for it. It's gonna have to be city personnel.
Well, I was looking forward to getting in there. Road
You're-
meeting.
I don't think our insurance will
I got
let
a
you.
street I wanna grade. I wanna get in that grade.
Can't imagine where, Arden.
Arden's good at moving cones.
Does there need to be permission for the city equipment to be in the parade and the
Oh,
plows to
yeah,
be painted
yeah.
and all that? I don't know that, does that have to get,
I don't think we have in the
That's
past. No,
Okay.
I think you're okay.
okay.
Alright,
Garbage drive.
technically, do you rescind your motion?
Yeah, I'll rescind my motion.
I didn't even catch this.
Would this be a good time to make a motion to budget some money so Teresa can scan stuff in that we can actually read?
Run city.
I am working on that. I kind of referred to you. I talked to RIT. I need an adapter to my program, a PDF program. I currently have one on there, but I need one that's gonna be able to organize the documents and whatnot, and I talked to RIT about which program I need, so I'm working on
You
it.
need some money.
Hopefully within the next month or so, it'll get better and it won't be so blurry.
I'm
You can take it out of Nelson's audio video budget.
There you go.
He has an audio video budget?
Yes, I do.
I didn't see that.
$10,000, don't you forget it.
I didn't.
Don't you lose it.
Alright,
Okay.
thank you, Hometown Christmas, thanks for everything you guys do, thanks for putting that on for the community.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Alright, we're gonna move on to reports. First report up is the city engineer report, Mr. Stockwell.
We got Nicholson Rules there on the agenda, but what we've been doing in our office is we've been working on a study that goes along with the rural development loan. So we put that together and sent that out to them for review. But we're simply waiting for the word on the agreements so we can move forward with design. Mike Franken Trail, they've got the asphalt pavement in. Everything's been fine graded. I believe they still have sealing work to do out there. But we're gonna be doing probably a walkthrough inspection with the DOT and trying to final that job out with the contractor in the next couple of weeks.
Mitch, what happened with that change order that you guys were working on?
So that came in, do you remember, it was,
It was a little bit less, can't remember that dollar amount.
we got the contractor knocked $5,000 off, and we also got them to agree to if it took less effort on their part. So we monitored how long their equipment hours and those things, and they took less equipment hours, then they would scale that back. And so it did take less equipment hours, so I wanna say that the change order ended up around 15,000 or so right now. I think initially it was at 27 when we first got it to you guys. But we'll be going through that final inspection and getting those numbers, final numbers to the DOT and for everyone to review at the end. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got it. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Help me understand why we have to pay that.
So, we design our plans to the DOT's standards, they have their bid items. You know, in this situation, the ground there was much more wetter than we anticipated, than we would expect a contractor to anticipate. And on the DOT projects, they will allow the contractor, they do have the ability to request a claim for extra funds in those situations. I know that's just how the DOT has their project set up. So they would have bid items for like mucking out those areas or adding additional rock if they need to. In this situation, we needed to add cement treated base is what we did there because we felt that was the only thing that would really work in that situation. That's how the DOT usually handles those, I guess.
Okay, but how did we not know it was wet before we even went to bid? Or how does a bidder, potential bidder not come out and look at the site and think of things like that?
Right. We didn't have soil borings. We don't usually do soil borings on a wet trail project like this. I mean, I can say that from my experience, and this is the worst dirt anything I've ever seen that we've run into on a project like that. I mean, usually on an asphalt sidewalk project, you peel the dirt off and you lay the cement or the asphalt or whatever it might be. And this was so wet that they couldn't get their equipment in there. They couldn't get their paver in there. Should they anticipated that? I don't know. We surely didn't anticipate it. Our office or the DOT staff didn't anticipate that.
Was that a wetland? What's the, I just. I can see why they missed that on their bid.
Always been.
It's just so when we set up our contracts, when we have specific bid items for, this isn't a lump sum project. It's not just one number and that's what they get paid. It's on a unit price contract. So we have, say we have 15 items in this contract. We have a unit price for the gravel, we have a unit price for the asphalt, we have a unit price for them to mold in. You know, if there's changes, and that's the reason why we do unit prices, so we can make changes where we need to. If we need to add a culvert, which we did add a culvert in this situation in one area, because part of getting out of that mucky area was elevating the sidewalk a little bit in there to help bring it out of there. So the contract's actually set up so that when we make changes, we have a unit price established so that we can add those things when we need to. Because there's always these projects, there's always unforeseen conditions, there's always things under the ground that we might not know is there. By having the unit prices there allows us some flexibility to make changes while we're out there, not have to renegotiate prices or be held hostage by prices. So.
You said at one point, when I asked that the next bid was 50,000 higher.
Yeah.
So we're still plus 32, 30, whatever it ended up being, we still save money
Yeah, from the next bidder, yes.
from the next bid.
Yeah.
The important thing in my mind, even though it costs $15,000 extra for the Portland cement base, is that it's finally done after probably 6 years, 5-6 years.
I'm happy with that too, but I'm trying to understand, as we do these road projects, are we gonna have surprise change orders moving forward?
On Nicholson?
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
Wow. That's what I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah.
When I bid a project, I bid it and I gotta stick to my number.
Right.
And so I'm having a hard time understanding how,
In the civil.
and nothing against you, but that's one reason we pay you.
Right.
To do this, to I don't know, what would we pay $60,000 to design the road?
Right.
Something ridiculous?
Right, so
So I would think that's how we prevent these issues, is what I'm trying to say.
So the alternative, Mark, is to write that in the contract that the contractor is responsible for all those things. Okay, well, when you start doing that too much, they start just as you probably, when there's unknowns in a bid, you have to take care of those risks. You have to, if you're adding extra costs for those unknowns. The alternative would be to assume that all that area needed to be over excavated and have rock and everything in there, and not knowing exactly what area that is until we get out there with construction. So the alternative would be to assume we need it on most of the job and have the contractor give us a number for that, and then essentially pay for that when maybe we didn't have to, okay? I don't know if that makes sense.
You're dealing with unknowns.
Yeah, and
If you're not gonna do soil borings, you're dealing with unknowns. It's no different than the Turtle Creek Trail. I asked the same question. You know, they ended up having a 100% overrun on gravel. Now, I understand, I've been involved, I've sat here a long time, and I've seen a lot of change orders. And it's always unforeseen things underneath the ground that you didn't know, didn't plan for, unforeseen. My problem with the Turtle Creek part was they missed it by 100%. I mean, you miss it by 20, I can understand that, 25%, I get it. To miss it 100%, that was hard for me to swallow. And just like this trail, like Frankie Trail, you can look at that corner, and it's had cattails in it ever since I can remember. So you can assume that is bad soil. But can you assume that you just flat out cannot get in there? I don't know if you'd assume that. You know, on a good day, Terry go bouncing through there with the motor. On a bad day, he can't. But, I mean, short of doing soil borings, how do you know what's there?
That's why I'm asking.
No, and I guarantee you,
And
on
it's
the
not normal
Mickelson,
in my world, so I'm trying to understand.
well, the Mickelson Road projects, you're gonna have more water.
I'd just say in the civil world, I mean, when you do bid a project like that with the contractor, there's unknowns. There's things underground that we don't know going into the job, the contractor doesn't know going into the job. There's a lot of unknowns on our type of projects. And we try to do the best we can to write the contract to hold the contractor responsible for as many as we can, but we also know that if we write it too stiff, that we pay for that. We pay for that risk of that unknown in these projects. And the DOTs, you know, how they've got a lot of their set up is they try to minimize that risk to the contractor, have these established bid items, and when they run into something that they feel is that the contractor shouldn't have to anticipate, then they're more of the mind that they work out a change order, figure out what that cost is to get the job done right.
So our portion of that total was a quarter or third?
20%, it's an 80-20 grant, so 20% is on 15, so, yeah, it's not the whole amount.
Right.
So Mark's coming at this similar to what I do. We deal on the other side. We're suppliers that are selling to government entities, and we're stuck.
Yeah.
We give them a price. It doesn't work. What he's telling us, Mark, is it doesn't work the other way.
Yeah.
Right. If they goof up, the contractor, oh well, I'm off the hook. If we screw up when we give somebody a quote, a city or a county, we're stuck.
Right.
It doesn't see, you're right, it is not fair.
Yeah.
That's the point he's made.
I completely understand, and like I take the mechanical industry, which maybe you guys are kind of in a little bit. You're developing a product, you have control of what that product's gonna be, and you have much more control over that. In the civil world, again, we don't always know what's underground. We don't, and there's a lot of times we don't know what we get into.
You're supposed to be a ground whisperer.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question. Are you done, Mark?
Oh, yes, I just gotta accept it.
Okay.
That's the way it is.
So, these guys are gonna love this. We were out for a walk the other day and walked the new trail. It seems like it's, I don't know how you explain it. It's cracked, it's not sealed tight.
Okay.
Like, it looks like there's lots of microscopic cracks, which makes me think we're gonna get water in there, and it's gonna the top coat's gonna bust off.
I haven't been on it yet, so we'll look at that.
And I don't know it.
I haven't been on meeting yet.
Okay. I seen it really bad, kinda down where the new parking lot deal is. So if you look at that, right where it kinda starts, it almost looks like they didn't get it packed good enough.
Sure.
And I don't know,
We'll take a look at it.
I'm talking out of stuff I don't know, but maybe just take a look at that.
Could have been cold or something too.
That's what I thought, it was probably cold when they paved it, and I wondered if they didn't get it packed. Cause I'm assuming that it's gonna bust.
We'll take a look at it. on these trails, sometimes we have a courser.
Anyway, when I was out for my walk, I'd watch things like that when I'm out for my walk.
Thank you, Mitch.
Just to clear something up, the 100% wasn't these guys, the overall.
You don't need to be covered for him, Craig. He's a big boy, he can cover for himself.
We make mistakes too. So. Okay, on the force account side, we've had a few preliminary plan reviews. Western Oaks Estates is on the agenda later. We'll be discussing that. We've had a few plat reviews, one of the South Main Edition, Oaks Edition, JM Edition, and doing updates for the CIP subdivision regulations. We had several meetings on getting our subdivision regulations redrafted, so we can help assist them with that. And then we've attended the sports complex planning meeting last week, and we're going to continue with meetings at the end of the month. So with that meeting, we are working on showing some exhibits that show how we can maybe shift around soccer throughout the facility, maybe rearrange it to accommodate the industrial growth to the north. We've got a couple layouts that we kind of like in the office, so we'll be presenting at the next meeting with that group. Okay, anything else?
Questions? At this point? Alright, thanks, Mitch. Alright, Craig?
Streets, we're pretty much wrapped, well, we are wrapped up at this time as far as we know for patching and curb. Gonna keep plugging away in the gravel roads we can. They should, tomorrow I think they'll be thawed out a little bit, we're gonna be able to scratch them again and do a little bit with them. Tree removal we're done with, we still got some trimming to do around on some of the streets, just keep from hitting the plows and that when we go underneath them. Leaf drop site's been closed up. We are still getting a few bags of leaves once in a while, but not too bad. Traffic cones, we do have them out. It'll probably be one of the last times we put them out. I'll keep an eye on the weather. Right now, putting them into the asphalt streets does not work. The asphalt's way too hard to get them to get the spikes in. So if we do anything, it'll be like on the gravel roads or some roads that don't have curb and gutter on them. So we'll just, if we get a chance to get them out yet, again, I'll be pulling them tomorrow, and we're just gonna keep an eye on the weather. As long as we don't have plows out, we'll be able to keep running them, so. Few utility issues, South Main and Sherwood Circle, they had a couple of, they did 2 gas lines up on South Main, and both of them got a little close to the surface and it heaved their pavement. I have contacted them already. They do have a locate coming in. They got a company coming in, I believe, this week to get them dug out, repacked, and put back in, so they'll be getting done. The one up on Sherwood, I did contact the developer, because that street hasn't been taken over. And I contacted Sioux Valley on that one too, so they're aware of it. So that will be getting addressed and taken care of too. Water and sewer, still monitoring the ponds. Our TSS just does not want to come down, we're still a little high. We can make the daily max, but we can't make the 30-day average. If I'm gonna take a sample again this week, if next week, if it's not down low enough, I think we're just gonna have to discharge, we're getting too full. So we'll just have to, I'll be writing a letter to DNR and EPA, so it's not a real big thing, because like I said, we're making the daily limits, but we're just not gonna be able to make a 30-day average. The rest of it, ammonia, BODs, pH, everything else is good, just that the TSS, so. Park and pool, everything's pretty much wrapped up in the parks and the pool. Batting cages are down, soccer goal, nets, we've got the nets down, we just don't have the framework put away yet. Now that the ground's a little harder to get out to the trailer and pick up and get those picked up and put away too, so. That's pretty much all I've got, I guess, this time.
Think about putting in the ice rink this year, we discussed it.
We can, I mean, just see what the weather does. I mean,
Right.
last year was so goofy as
It was
warm
weird.
and cold, and warm and cold, and we do have to put a liner in if we do it, otherwise that area does not hold water, so it's just.
Go what you got, and then just throw it at us.
But if the weather looks good, if it looks like we can get something going before, school break or Christmas break, then sure, I'd like to put it in.
Okay.
But if the weather's not good enough until after January, it just doesn't pay to spend the money to put it in, so.
Okay.
Where do you do that?
It goes down by the pool, that little kind of berm area.
Just below it.
Mark's got a great idea, you put it down by Franklin Trail.
Yeah, that should hold water. It's been over for years, so.
That's being chipped.
One question on a curb cut behind Chard there. Is that gonna go back to the way it was, or is that?
That has been fixed.
Has it?
They took out the gutter and they put an actual approach, back in there. We did the gutter and the approach and then, did the, concrete, all the driveway up to the building, so.
They've done the driveway now.
Yep, that's all been done. When I was up there last week, the dirt work wasn't done, but that's, we're concerned about the approach and the driveway curves and stuff like that, so.
Potential to be plowing soon.
And that's, yep, and that's one thing that too we've been talking about is, they didn't put a sidewalk they didn't do the sidewalk through there. We have nothing in ordinances and that's something that we're gonna try to put into somewhere in policy or something like that, that if anybody puts in a new driveway, they put the sidewalk through the driveway. Try to get some of this eliminated, cause they didn't do it. I mentioned to them, I said, now's the perfect time to do it, and they decided to save a little money and not do it, so.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're gonna be addressing here over the next few months. Try to get it switched. Anything else?
No. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Craig.
Alright, Audra, the finance officer report?
Alright, so, if you look at the top of my report, I just, had highlighted some of the higher revenues that we had come in October. In the box in the middle, I put in all of the totals that we had through September 30th, so that has all of the general funds, revenues, and expenses up to that date. If you haven't taken a look at it, take a look at the new website, please. It's up and running, and I'm on the chopping away basically at all of the updates that need to be made. I'm going page by page and kind of making sure that everything looks, cohesive and that all the information is up to date. And I've listed in there what I've already started working on, so you can take a look at those pages to see kind of an idea of what pages will start to look like as we keep going forward here. Liquor licenses are coming up at the next meeting, so I just put in here what you can expect at the next meeting with the different hearings that are in place, and if you have any questions with those coming up, please let me know. I did attend an election training recently, since I haven't fully been through an election yet, and that was pretty informative. The beginning stuff was kind of a nice review of petitions and things like that coming in, which I am familiar with since I did do that once. However, the rest of the process will be new to me, so it was good to kind of learn all about that. And then I put your pay stubs on your spots there, so you have those, and that was put into your accounts last week. I've also provided you with a calendar of events, and just to note, there's a few days this month that City Hall is closed, so make sure to note those. But any questions?
So,
Okay.
Thanks, Audra.
Thank you.
And Teresa, city administrator.
Okay. In your packet, there is Paul Clark's building inspection report for your review. Also put in Lance's code inspection, code violation report in there. Each one will be submitting a report like that monthly as far as what they're working on and what they're addressing. I will try to reschedule Lance for another meeting. He can come before you and just kind of introduce himself so you can put a name with a face for those who don't know him. Update on our health insurance. We got notice from our health insurance company that our rates for next year are not gonna rise at all, so good for our employees, good for the city, so those premiums will stay the same for 2018. Just a little bit of a jamboree update. Jesse gave me this. He wanted to know, we talked about this a couple of months ago as far as the the Jamboree events and the carnival as to who was gonna handle, whether it was gonna be the chamber, which they've done the last couple of years, or if it should come under the Jamboree Committee's umbrella. Each group, I guess, talked about it independently, and they wanna keep that event with the chamber. So as far as selling the tickets for the carnival and collecting the revenue, the chamber's gonna do that part of the Jamboree event. So just wanted to update you guys on that, so you know who's handling it. Craig, in his report a little bit, but we actually had 2 applicants for snow removal help. One of them withdrew because they found another job, but Eric Top, who has done part-time snow removal help for us for the last couple of years, and he's been the only one we've hired the last couple of years besides our regular, city employees. He reapplied and, like I said, he's familiar, he's helped us the last couple of years, so he's familiar with the equipment, familiar with our procedure. So we went ahead and rehired him at $14.50 an hour to come back for the city. So between our regular help and him, again, like I said, I don't think we'll have any issues with snow removal help. We've done that the last couple of years now. So kind of already gone over the Mike Franken Trail a little bit. I did notice that it looks like their signage and stuff all got up this week too. So besides them going through, Stocko's going through and doing an inspection and doing a checklist of punch list items that need to be addressed, it should pretty well be complete. The yard waste disposal site, as you guys know, it was closed at the end of October. We've been having a little bit milder fall and winter, so there's still some leaves, so people have been calling as to what to do with them. I did put some information in your packet, because I know a few of you have probably gotten calls about it, of what they can do. The county has 2 sites besides their landfill open, where it's open to all residents of Minnehaha County. Actually, I think there's 5 different counties that can go there, so any resident of Minnehaha County can. There's the one up on Cliff Avenue, and there's one by the fairgrounds, and then if you have a large load, the actual landfill will take it. So we've been referring them to that. We have that information printed out here, They can always, of course, mulch it and see if their garbage hauler will haul it or not, but just wanted to give you that information in case you get calls.
And there was no fee for the, one of those 2 on Cliff?
No,
or
it's $3 a load.
$3 a load?
$3 a load at those 2 locations in Sioux Falls.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'm sure the larger loads at Sioux Falls, at the landfill, if you had a larger load, then that would probably be a little more. Yeah, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I didn't make the bill. I got 3 cans sitting in my garage.
And kind of the last thing I want to let you guys be aware of, and I got a call from Scott Jansen with the DOT. Basically, the city went through, did a study on all the state highways as far as the speed limits and the posting of them on the state highways. They found a few places in the state where the speed limits weren't correct, or the signage wasn't correct, and they needed to change it. They also found a few incorrect or inconsistencies with where the speed limits are posted. The administrative rule that governs that basically is the wording of the speed limit will be this on this highway for this many miles. The administrative rule does, some of that wasn't consistent. And he just wanted to let us know, wanted me to convey it to the council, that in Hartford here, our speed limits through town on Highway 38 are correct as they're shown. They're posted correct, the signage is correct. The only thing that's incorrect is the administrative rule. In their wording of their administrative rule, it basically says we have 1.1 miles going through Hartford. We have 1.3. So they're going to be changing that reference in their administrative rule. So like I said, there's no big change or signage change, but he wanted the council to be aware of it in case you hear that the speed limits are changing. There's no change for Hartford, it's just, like I said, kind of on an administrative end on that. So, wanted to pass that along to you guys. And want to let you know I am taking a few days off, so I'll be out of the office starting this Thursday through Tuesday, but I'll be back in on Wednesday, and I'll have my cell phone if anything major happens. City Hall burns down or something. What? But we'll leave you guys.
We can handle it.
So what happens when it really does burn down?
So I get a longer vacation.
He's contact Teresa, obviously.
So we make volunteer work out of Craig's office.
No.
Yeah. That's what I got, unless you have questions.
I don't. Nobody else?
No.
Nothing's new with roads, right?
We'll talk about that here.
Oh, is that on there? Okay,
It's on the agenda.
I apologize, thank you.
I think we can. Can we flip new and old business? Everything we can?
You can flip the agenda however you like it.
Let's
I
jump.
got a feeling old business could take a while and.
Let's jump.
Entertaining.
Alright, so, new business, review approved preliminary plan for Western Oaks Estates. So, obviously you might have some background on this, this was at planning and zoning last night. Is that correct?
Yeah, so, Western Oaks Estates, there's a preliminary plan, in your box for you guys to review. Planning and zoning reviewed this, at a special meeting last night. They have submitted plans for Western Oaks Estates, the developer has, they've been reviewed by our engineer. As of last night, there were a couple comments, that the engineer had, basically that two items that were design standards. The planning and zoning board passed it last night, or recommended passing it by you guys last night, contingent that these two items get addressed to our engineer's satisfaction. Since that time, I put in your box too, we did get a response from the developers, engineers, saying they are gonna address those two comments. The first one is in regards to extending an easement, on their plans, they're gonna do that. The second one was in regards as to the slope of their sanitary sewer on the east side of their property. It looks like they are going to remove that existing sewer and, put it in at the correct slope, so. Those two items being addressed, and Mitch can talk a little bit more on those, I believe they should be up to our standards.
Yeah, as long as they've addressed those two comments, and those are the only two comments that we had. So it sounds like they're addressing those.
Have the setbacks changed for, side yards on a corner?
Our last update to our, zoning regulations, so on corner lots, it used to be, if you had a street on, two sides, both counted as a front yard, so you have to have 25 on one and on the address side and 25 on the other street side. When we did our last update, we did change that. You have to have 25 still on the address street, so that's basically your front. And then the other street side, it got reduced down to 20, give them a little break, so it's now 25 and 20.
And why did we do that?
Just that I think you let them utilize a little bit more of their property on it. Other towns were doing that, and that was changed two years ago when we updated our zoning.
This sewer change, Mitch, is that a complete dig up of Oaks again, or?
No, I think they can stay outside of the street and just start outside the curb and replace it from there.
Toward their house, or toward the townhouse, or no? Or no?
So if they started outside the curb in what we call the boulevard area.
Yep.
Dig it up there and relay that sewer to the west of there, there's maybe, I don't know if there's 100 feet of sewer that's in place now.
Okay.
The issue is it was put in at a steeper grade than we have an issue with on the far west side, not getting enough cover on that sewer.
Right.
We have minimum standards that say it has to have 7 feet of cover on there to prevent freezing the main through there.
Right.
And on that end, they had less than 5, so by picking up some grade in that pipe, if they relay that pipe, they can pick up another foot in there, just to help so we don't have a maintenance issue.
So they're not gonna dig up
Not in the street, I don't think they need to go to the street.
Alright.
We have a couple of members from planning and zoning, anybody, any comments or thoughts on things that were on there?
couple of comments we did have from the audience that night was just revolved around drainage too, and it's just so everybody knows, the drainage isn't evaluated with this plan, that'll be another submittal that they submit to us, and that's an administrative approval, so we'll be reviewing those drainage calcs and making sure that it meets the standards as well there too.
What if, okay, that the drainage at that point, is going towards Pat DeGroot's backyard, okay? I mean, what's the resolve there? I mean, to put in some kind of reservoir pond of some sort?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you it's not.
Retention
I mean,
pond?
They have I can tell on here what enough of what they're planning to do, and they've got a storm sewer stubbed out from Oaks on the north side of that new building, the multifamily unit that's going up. So a lot of the drainage will be directed towards that.
Okay.
But yeah, they had their detention standards that they have to meet to, you know, they have to hold back some of that water so they're not flooding anybody out and make sure they're not creating a negative impact on the neighbors.
And I remember this from the last time we discussed this 7 acres or whatever it is, close to 7. And that was a garbage receptacle being fenced. I got late to last night's meeting. Did that mean fence or, I mean, so that none of the garbage blows over into Mr. Eggbrotten or Mr. DeGroot's yard?
I don't remember that coming up, I guess, but.
I mean, is there any stipulations on that? I mean, do we have anything?
No, I think there was some discussion about a fence being required with the plan, and
Right.
I don't think you have an ordinance or anything that would require a fence in this situation.
Yeah, if you build over 2 units, so if you were building like a 4-plex or a 6-plex or an 8-plex, you need to get a conditional use permit from the planning and zoning board.
Right.
And during that process, the planning and zoning board can look at a plan, and if they wanna require fencing or, garbage receptacles in a certain spot or fencing around that, or if they wanna require berming for water, they can set certain conditions on a property. Now, these are only planned as twin homes, so they're only 2 units, so they don't require a conditional use permit. So as long as they meet our standards, we can't require the property owner to do, just like, we can't require you to put a fence up at your house.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Sure.
you can put one up if you want or not, but we,
Yeah.
as a city, can't say, Scott, we don't wanna look at your backyard, you need your fence up. No, I mean, you know,
Quite understandable.
so if it's under 2 units, we can't put those.
So Vance,
Conditions on.
are you planning on, just each individual tenant, to pay for their own garbage, like all of us here?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Was there any question, Mitch, with the county, or is that the state that would control that access onto Western?
That's actually, our control there, I think.
City
Yeah.
controls that. It's on city.
That's a city control?
Yep,
Cause we're annexed on that side.
yep. I even talked to the county about it too, prior to this year.
Okay.
Last thing I was looking at here, and I couldn't see it on the plans, lighting. And I apologize, you probably talked about it last night, but, is there any chance that any lighting, might be, somewhat overbearing to anybody in the neighborhood?
You mean as far as light poles or?
Light poles, yeah.
We're not putting any in, if that's, the only lights will be is like on the front of the,
Okay,
by their garage, whatnot,
That's
outside,
it.
by the doors, that's it.
okay, all right, thank you.
So is this designed as a private drive, or
Yes.
is this designed as,
It's a private drive.
Bernadine Boulevard? So that doesn't have to meet any city standards?
It has to meet fire access standards, those sorts of things, but yeah, we're not taking over the maintenance of it. So there's no, that's really the controlling standard at that point.
Well, you know as well as I do, it's gonna happen.
You're gonna try to turn it over to you guys?
In enough time, whoever lives there, you'll hear the phrase, I'm a taxpayer and I want X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, but these are all gonna be rentals, Mark. They're not gonna be for sale. We were told
Stephanie,
that last night.
how long have I sat here?
It's too damn long, maybe.
Too damn long. And I guarantee you, somebody is gonna say, I'm a taxpayer, and I want that X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And you'll say, that's private driveway. And they'll say, I'm a taxpayer. And then there'll be a different council, and they'll do what they want.
It's something we come across with other communities, and that does happen over time.
It happens here.
Yeah.
We've already got 2 other private drives in town, Mark.
Where?
Topaz Place up on Cressman's Edition, and Baker or Barker or whatever it is over on, off of Rude. Those are private drives.
Over by,
Freedom.
Well, Freedom Place, yeah, Freedom Place is another one, we got 3 of them.
Who maintains those?
We don't.
Right.
We-
How long have they been
How
in?
long have they been in?
Freedom Place has been in for 5-7 years, maybe?
That first one was
It's been 10
Wiseman's,
years.
Yeah, but I was thinking over here by Leisure
oh,
Living.
yeah, yeah.
That's been a long time.
Long time.
Well, that's not long enough for them to want something.
You're seeing more and more of these just because they can't, with the wider driveways, that's why they have to do it, they have to get off on private driveway or private road. Otherwise, they can't get their driveways wide enough to the city they're too wide for city standards. So they're doing this here so they can get by with driveways together and to utilize the property.
So it's gonna meet fire standards.
Is there hydrant? Yep. Where?
There's one back
So there's a couple of them, ain't there?
There's one out in the western, or there's one up at, 5th and West, 6th and Western, so fire code requires hydrants within 400 feet of all portions of the structure.
There's one in the middle.
There's
And so they've got one in the middle,
one in the end.
and then there's one up at 6th and Western, I believe.
Yeah, there's one north of the townhome that's going in there.
Yeah, there's one over there too.
So those are the things we look for.
So what we're looking at is preliminary plans with engineering on them.
Yeah,
That's why the twin homes are shown on 2 platted lots, correct? Cause I assume that after the replat, every one of those 56-foot wide lots is gonna be turned into a 113-foot lot, correct? Or are we
So-
building a twin home on 2 lots?
2 lots. So there'll be a
That's by design.
shared party wall, and that lot will be subdivided on that shared party wall.
Oh,
That's what they're proposing. And that's allowable within the zoning standards. and
Is that what 6-inch variance is built in, or?
No, there shouldn't be any variances. They did have a couple when they originally submitted it, a variance on,
well, that brings up a question, what's the minimum width of a lot?
I don't know.
That's for a single family. It changes when you got a common party wall. I don't know.
I wanna say it's 45.
I'm gonna say, it's a
This-
little
I
bit
think it's
less if
90
you're sharing a
overall,
common wall.
45
so.
if you subdivide it. So they're at 53, 56.
I'm not gonna lie, this hit the box at 8 o'clock this morning, and, I don't have access to the box until I get here, or until I get home. There's been activity up there all summer. What's the push?
Winter.
That's been coming all summer.
I'll probably step to come up to the phone, come up to the podium.
He doesn't hear well.
Do you wanna talk? Do you have something you wanna say on it?
Well, I'll answer whatever questions you have.
Why don't you come up and make sure Audrey's got your name for the record, but
Vance Peterson. What do you wanna know?
What's the, again, as a city council person, I try to be prepared for my meetings and look at things and review them, and I have 2 hours to look at this. What's the push? What's the sense of urgency on this?
Well, it's the thing, the money, we're trying to get a couple more foundations in this fall yet.
Okay,
That's what the push is, I'm trying to get 3 of them completed.
okay.
And I assume since, it's private, and driveway versus 29 feet versus 33, that's meet specs, that's cool. Okay. Okay. So, might be with the- okay.
What do we have to do here? We need to approve the plan, or?
Yeah, so basically, it's preliminary plan, P and Z recommended approval last night. City council has to approve it as well, so if you do approve it, it'll go on file. So any of their future plats they file and plans have to meet this preliminary plan. You know, this is the plan on
Make a
record.
motion to approve preliminary plans for Western Oaks Estates.
We got a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Horn. Alright, discussion?
Teresa, refresh my memory where what do you call it, the assurance agreement? Or where does that come into play now?
So, assurance agreements is basically kind of is something the developer signs that state, you know, we're gonna get the utilities in, you know, the water, the sewer and whatnot in the first year. We're gonna put the first lift down, and then the second year, we're gonna come back and do the second lift for the street. And we've been doing it when they've platted the property. That's when we have them sign an insurance agreement, basically saying they're gonna do all this infrastructure work. Now, we've had discussions and we're trying to change that here when we update our subdivision regulations. Instead of have assurance agreements, go to construction agreements, which we'll do on the forefront. Basically, we would do it probably during this time right now, when they do construction, right?
You'd still do it when you plat. We're gonna implement a construction permit. That's that permit, when they come to get that
Permit, yeah.
permit is when they, enter that construction agreement. The assurance agreement that you currently have is meant for, if they have public infrastructure that they're installing, it's a document they come in and sign and say they're gonna get it done in 2 years, do it to your standards, all these things. You know, with this project, the only thing we probably need that assurance agreement on is the water and sewer, because the street's private.
So do we have that assurance agreement and the construction agreement in place and ready for him to sign?
Well, when he plats it, yeah, they
Yeah.
can have an insurance agreement.
So
ready for the
that
sign.
has to wait for a plat.
That's, yeah.
He
Yeah, 'cause
still-
that gets filed with the plat.
And he has to plat this probably to get a building permit still, so he still has to go through, first he's gotta get his drainage calcs over to us so that we can approve those.
Are you sure he has to plat it to get a building permit?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because I can't, it's gotta be on a lot. I can't get a building permit with it not being on a lot.
You can put a city street in without a plat. Can't get a
Yeah,
building
you can put
permit.
the infrastructure in without a plat.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's why we need to revisit that.
Yeah.
Question on H.01. Maybe it's just a oversight on the engineer's part. Between all those twin homes, there's a solid line, a couple dashes and another solid line. For whatever reason, between the most easterly twin home and the one adjacent to the west, that's a different line. What does that mean?
Are you looking at the lot where the existing, or the building that's going up now is on?
Further west of that.
West of there, yeah?
Further west of that. Station 14.
I think he's talking about the fire line.
Nope, further west of that.
Station, what do you say?
There's a station 14 plus 50, right where that word.
That's still another property line, but there's another line on top of it that looks like it's, I don't know what that line is, I think it might just be, this print.
H.01.
Cause that one's kinda gray versus black, you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yep. My question was, what's that mean? What's the difference there?
I think it's just a line that's not supposed to be there. The typo of this sort.
Alright. Got a motion and a second, more discussion, more questions?
I have one question for legal counsel, and that is, what we decide tonight, if there is a change of ownership, does does that change any of the stipulations that we'll set forth tonight or in the future? Change of ownership in the property. Sorry, Vance, but you mentioned that to me and stuff. Let's just say, well, if you want to be forthright, Vance, you plan on developing this and then at some point selling it,
Correct.
okay? Do you have a time frame on that?
Well, as soon as I get them done, you know.
Okay, so let's say a year from now, okay? So a year from now, said development is done, Vance sells it to party number 2. Does that change any of the stipulations that we are discussing this evening as far as change in ownership? I can't imagine it does, but I'm asking.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Same criteria has to take place.
I can
Good.
maybe add to that. 'Cause one of the things that we look for when we have these private roads in a private area like this is we share that concern if the ownership does change, and we want to make sure there's an entity established to maintain that road, so that's either the homeowners association or some other type of entity. And they've acknowledged that they're going to create that entity we actually require it with the plating, that they'll have to create that entity.
So before I vote, I wanna get this, so approval of the preliminary plan, they can put in utilities. They can't.
They have to first get their drainage calcs before they can start anything out there.
Okay, so who signs off on that? You?
Yep.
Okay, then what?
And then they can submit a plat.
Who signs off on that?
Teresa does, and I both.
Okay,
But it's gotta conform to the preliminary plan.
and then what?
And then they'll sign an insurance agreement, and then they can start their project.
Okay, so what you're telling me on the camera is that if we approve this preliminary plan and those pieces don't fall into place, if he's up there building, putting something in that he doesn't have permission to put in, either he's holding the bag or you two are holding the bag.
Right.
Period, correct?
Right, I mean,
Because I'm not saying things are gonna go upside down, but if I vote yes for this and things go upside down, it's one of 3 people. Right? Or am I reading it wrong?
no, I think you're right. I
He could
think,
do water and sewer, and storm sewer and stuff like that, he could do utility work, but he can't do a building structure on it.
Mitch just got done telling me he can't do utilities until he does,
till we got an insurance agreement.
But those are private utilities, isn't that what we're saying?
No, the utilities are gonna be public.
Those are gonna be public.
Yep, so we're taking those over, and the water and the sanitary sewer are gonna be.
you know what road I'm going down, you know
Yeah.
what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, the issue you've been having is you don't have any mechanism, okay, for them to connect onto your guys' infrastructure extended, there should be a permit there, and you don't seem to have that permit. And that's what we've been talking about implementing as a construction.
You got an excavation permit,
Yeah.
which was failed.
But an excavation,
Hold
excavation permits are meant to just be able to work in the right of way.
Mm-hmm.
It allows that contractor to come, a private utility or something like that to work in the right of way. You need something that allows someone to extend your infrastructure, hook up to the sewer main and extend it, hook up to the water main and extend it. You don't currently have something like that in place. And you have the ability to allow someone to connect or not connect. And so you have that authority. So if someone's connecting to your lines without your permission, then you have the authority to tell them to stop.
Like on a Monday afternoon.
I just wanna make sure that this process goes like it's supposed to go. And that we don't grant a preliminary plan, and we're up there boring water and sewer in, and the easement's not secured, and you don't have the information you need, and you don't have the information you need, and then magically, all this happens, Craig, Neil, and Jesse are all out of town, and Terry's doing God knows what, and then we're getting phone calls on a Thursday afternoon from a resident. Cause I'll tell you, I can't take it anymore. I can't, so.
No inspections, sewer, water.
I don't have any problem voting for this. But if this goes upside down, it'll get bad. As far as I'm concerned, it'll get bad. So, and you can email me, somebody can email me those steps in which all this needs to happen. So I can make sure, so I can drive by and make sure that it's not out of sequence. Sound fair?
When do they get the building permit then?
Once they plat, they'll come down and get a building permit with Teresa. I think that's.
That's after the assurance and all that, everything is done, then they get a building permit. Does that go to you guys then? No, that just goes right to City Hall. Teresa makes that.
We're P and Z at this point in time, P and Z's done.
Done.
We gave it to
Okay.
you guys. We're done, and
Okay.
then it goes on this. Unless there's a variance or something.
And the two contingencies this needs to be made on is the sewer being fixed
Yeah.
and the easement
Sewer
being
being,
granted.
yep, sewer being relayed and getting the proper easements.
So here's another question. When should the sewer be fixed? Should it be fixed on the front end or should it be fixed on the back end, or doesn't matter?
Well, a good contractor would fix it right away, I think.
I didn't ask what a good contractor did, I said, should it be fixed on the front end or the back end?
Should be on the front end.
Should be on the front end. So that could be part of the motion.
If you want.
Is there something going on here that's different than a normal lot or a development? I mean, are we gonna sit here with Assum's development and have the same discussion?
I hope not.
Well, I mean, I'm asking, but am I missing something?
Well, I think we've all missed having the confidence that things are being done in a responsible manner that doesn't ultimately set the city up for some liability because somebody did something out of sequence, or somebody was out of town, and so forgot to have it inspected, and oh, by the way, we can run a camera through it, we'll extend the warranty on it, and we'll just continue to do things the way we wanna do them. This is the contractor talking instead of the way the city wants to see them. I think that's ultimately what all of this is about.
And I think because it comes in at the 11th hour, it has that look. Okay, let's just make sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed and we know what's going on here.
Well, so here's my argument. So if the sewer's left for last, next May, when all of us have better things to worry about, is that gonna be on the front of your mind whether that sewer's fixed or not? Whether that sewer got changed?
We'll be on mine. We'll be on
It'll
mine.
be on yours?
Yeah, I mean, we have to, yeah, I mean, that's something we gotta look for when we inspect it and when we take it over for acceptance.
Okay, so that's a perfect example. So let's say it's June. And maybe there's another person here or two, a couple new faces. And you show up and you say, you know what, that sewer never got changed. You know, what are the options? Leave it, it'll work, tear it up. Some people live there, some people don't. Mr. Peterson's trying to sell it. Maybe you already sold it. I don't know what that scenario looks like. I know I don't wanna be in it. I don't wanna trust my memory to remember it.
Okay, so, but that is not his problem.
I didn't say it was.
Okay, we're here to,
I'm not putting
we're
this
here to
on him.
approve this or not. If we've got an
Yeah, but
internal,
ultimately, somebody's gonna have to make a motion, and I'm trying to determine whether,
I already made a
There's already
motion to
a motion.
approve.
There's already a motion.
oh, that's right.
So if,
But you didn't get the contingencies.
We did.
Your motion was just to approve minus the contingencies.
what you can do.
the easement that's lacking and the sewer that needs to
The
be.
engineering. That's part of the approval, is it not?
They've responded that they're gonna use
Because
it.
that was part of the P and Z's recommendation to us, was that, so if I approve the
And
P and
since,
Z, that's part of it, is the way I would interpret it.
and since last night, the developer has responded that he's gonna do those two things in writing. So we got that reassurance from them.
Got a motion and a second.
Right over there, Jeremy.
Tell you what, come on up, make sure Andrew's got your name for the minutes.
Anthony
Hey, Vance, can I have that? Vance?
Is that,
Say again, Matt.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
For the record,
I've only been up since 6, so I apologize, I'm a little tired.
that's okay.
My question kind of comes back to Scott, asking the question, what happens with new ownership? Currently, they're expected to be rentals, but there was a statement made last night that there's also the expectation eventually they'll be sold to individual parties. How does that impact what we're talking about tonight? Because my